Bol and welcome to Vine of Devotion, week 4 of our Rupa Shiksha program. Only Krishna's devotees are peaceful. Last week, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained to Srila Rupa Goswami how tiny and insignificant the jiva is and how the jiva is composed of the Lord's energy and always controlled by the Lord. In the next 4 verses, verses 144 to 148, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will go narrowing down further and further, explaining how rare it is to find a human being. And then among human beings, how rare it is to find somebody who acknowledges the scriptures. And then among those people who acknowledge the scriptures, how rare it is to find somebody who's engaged in pious activity. And then among those people, how rare it is to find somebody in knowledge. And then among those, the jnanis, how rare it is to find somebody who's actually liberated. And then among those who are liberated, how rare is it to find a devotee of Krishna? And then at this point, we'll come to the verse that we're memorizing for this week, that only the devotee of Krishna is peaceful and everybody else is restless and disturbed. And this video will end with the verse memorization process, but then I want to make another video where I explain the verse in a bit more depth. And then I'd like to go over the next verse, Muktanam api siddhanam, which you can optionally memorize, but it's not required. So now let's have a recap of the previous 9 verses we went through, and after that we're going to have a little Bengali lesson. Just to be clear, even though we're going through all these 9 previous verses, you only have to have 3 of them memorized. That is, Para Shunya Gabir, E Mata Brahmanda Bhori, and Bala kṛṣṇa-bhakta. And as always, if you're able to remember more of these verses, then that's great. E Mata Dasha Dina Prayage Rahiya, Shri Rupe Shiksha Dilo Shakti Sanchariya, Prabhu Kohe Shunoru Bhakti Raser Lakshan, Sutra Rupe Kohi Vistar Na Jai Varnan, Para Shunya Gabhir Bhakti Rasa Sindhu, Tomai Chakaite Tar Kohi Eka Bindu, E Mata Brahmanda Bhori Ananta Jiva Gan, Chorashi lakha yonite karo ye brahman, Keshagra shatika bhaga puna satangsha kori, Tar sukshma jiver sarupa vichari, Keshagra shatabhagasya satangsha sadrishatmaka, Jiva sukshma surupayam sankyatito hi chitkana, Balagra shatabhagasya shatadha kalpitasya cha, Bhago jiva savigyeya iti chaha parashruti, Shukshmanam apyaham jivaha, Aparimita dhruvastanubrito yadi sarvagatas, Tarhi na shashyate tiniyamo Dhruvane taratha, Ajani chayan mayantara vimucha niyantri bhavet, Samamanu janatam yadamatam matadushtataya. So now we'll have a little Bengali lesson. We're going to go over the word madhye, which you're going to see 7 times in the next few verses. Learning these basic words and understanding this essential Bengali grammar is going to make it so more helpful for you whenever you come across any other Bengali verses. So madhye is a postposition. Tar madhye means among them. So let's have a little revision of postpositions. We went over them briefly once in week 2, and now we're going to review it and go into it in a little more depth. Prepositions in English are connecting words that come preceding the noun. Whereas in Bengali and Hindi, they have postpositions, which come after the noun. So in English, we say in the temple. In Bengali and Hindi, they say the temple in. In English, we'd say on the altar. And in Hindi and Bengali, they'd say the altar on. In English, we would say with Gurudev. In Bengali and Hindi, they'd say Gurudev with. Around Giriraj, over the Yamuna, with the devotees. The Giriraj around, the Yamuna over, the devotees among. There's another rule for forming postpositions in Bengali. Very often, the noun takes the possessive case. This isn't for all postpositions, but it's for a majority of them. So you would say, Giriraja's around, the Yamuna's over, Gurudev's with. So how do you make a noun possessive in Bengali? How do you add an apostrophe S to a Bengali word? Two simple rules. If it ends with a vowel, then you add an R at the end, R.
Yamuna, Yamunar. Saraswati, Saraswatir. Sindhu, Sindhur.
If it ends with a consonant, then you add an R at the end.
Giriraj, Girirajer. Radhakund, Radhakundir.
And just something to take note of, when you see a word with a short A at the end, just consider that the short A isn't there. Because in Bengali script, you don't actually write a short A after a consonant. This would make more sense if we went over Bengali script together, which maybe we should do in the future. Let me know if you would be into that, and then I could start planning out a Bengali reading class. Okay, so again, if the word ends with a vowel, then add a R at the end. An example would be Jamunar. And then if a word ends with a consonant, then add Er at the end, like Gurudev, Gurudever. All right, I'm going to test you. Say Janavis in Bengali. All right, and now say Govindas. And remember, at the end, if there's a short A, consider it's not there. So Govindas ends with a D at the end. So say Govindas. All right, so the answer for Janavis is Janavir, and for Govindas is Govinder. All right, so back to the postposition madhye. Any noun coming before madhye also takes the possessive case. That's why we just went over this. Madhye is a very common postposition which has many meanings to it. It means within, inside, in between, in the middle, at the center. It means among, amid. And in this case, in these next verses, it means among. So if you want to say among the bhaktas, then bhaktas takes the possessive case. It becomes bhaktir madhye, among the bhaktas, among the devotees. In this Rupa Shiksha program, whenever we come across postpositions like this, then I'll point it out and you can take note. All right, so now we're going over the next 5 verses. So previously we went over the verse E mata brahmanda bhori ananta jivagan chorashi lakha yonite koroye brahman. In this universe there are unlimited living entities and they are rotating up and down among 8.4 million species. So now we come to the next verse. Tar madhye stavara jangama dui bhed. Tar madhye means among them. Among whom? Among the 8.4 million species. There are dui bhed, there are 2 divisions. What are the 2 divisions? Stavar, which means non-moving living entities, like trees and plants. And then there's jangama, which means moving living entities. So among all these living entities, there are 2 divisions, stavar and jangam, non-moving and moving. Jangame tiryaka jala stalachara vibhed. Jangame, of the jangam, of the moving living entities, there is tiryak, those living entities that fly. There's jalachar, those living entities that move in water. And there are stalachar, those living entities that move on land. Tar madhye stavara jangama dui bhed. Jangame tiryaka jala stalachar vibhed. Okay, now next verse. Tar madhye manusya jati ati alpatar. Tar madhye, among them, among the jangam, the moving living entities, manusya jati, the human species, is ati, is extremely alpatar. Alpa means few, few in number, and tara is like a comparative suffix. So like fewer, alpa tara. So among moving living entities, the human species is very much fewer. Tar madhye manusya jati ati alpatar. Tar madhye mlecha pulinda bodha shabar. Tar madhye, among them, among the manusya jati, the human species, there are mlechas, there are people outside the caste system. Srila Prabhupada would often translate this as meat eaters. There are pulinda, the aboriginal tribes, the bodha, which is the Buddhist, and Shabara, mountainous tribes. Tar madhye manusya jati ati alpatar. Tar madhye mlecha pulinda bodha shabar. So now we're putting aside all those people, and the next verse. Veda nishta madhye ardek, Veda mukhe mane. Veda nishta madhye. Now you might be wondering, why is nishta not in the possessive case? I thought before madhya, the noun is always supposed to be in the possessive case. So now I'm going to tell you about something called samas. Samas in grammar is when you compound two words or more into one word. And sometimes that one word we divide by hyphens, like you see here. Veda nishta madhye, see hyphens in between those words. So when you see multiple words as one or connected with a hyphen, then lots of times the possessive case is implied, and sometimes even different postpositions are implied. And you'll see more examples of this later on. So an example would be kṛṣṇa-das as one word, or kṛṣṇa-das with a hyphen in between. That would have the same exact meaning as kṛṣṇa-das. Both of them mean servant of Krishna. So Veda nishta madhye, among those who are Veda nishta. Nishta is a suffix, meaning being fixed in, having trust in, having regard for, like that. So those who have trust in the Vedas, who accept the Vedas, who acknowledge the Vedas, among those people, ardek, half of them, Veda mukhe mane. They only by their mukha, only by their mouth, by their lips, do they accept the Vedas. Half of the people who acknowledge the Vedas, they only pay lip service to the Vedas. They don't actually follow them. Veda nisheda papa kore, dharma nahi gane. These people who only pay lip service to the Vedas, they engage in pap kore. They engage in sinful acts that are Veda nishiddha, which means prohibited in the Vedas. Dharma nahi gane. They don't care for dharma. They don't even think about dharma. Veda nishta madhye ardhek, Veda mukhe mane. Veda nishiddha papa kore, dharma nahi gane. Okay, so now putting all those who don't follow dharma aside. Dharmachari madhye bahutta karma nishta. Dharmachari madhye, among those who observe, achari, those who observe dharma. Dharmachari madhye, among those who observe dharma, bahut, most of them, many of them, they are karma nishta. They are fixed in karma, engaging in pious fruitive acts. They want to do good in the world, live a pious life, and experience happiness in this world and in the next. They want to go to heavenly planets like that. Koti karma nishta madhye ek jnani shreshta. Koti means the same thing as a crore. A crore or koti is 10 million. So among 10 million, a crore of those fixed in pious acts and karma, there'll be one in whom gyan, in whom spiritual knowledge that they're not this body and that they're the soul, one in whom this knowledge has awakened. This happens by performing karma without being attached to the fruits. Niṣkāma karma yoga. So koti karma nishta madhye, among those fixed in karma, ek jnani shreshta. You'll find one jnani who is topmost. Dharmachari madhye bahutta karma nishta. Koti karma nishta madhye ek jnani shreshta. Now next verse. Koti jnani madhye hoy ek jana mukta. Koti jnani madhye, among crores of jnanis, hoy, there may be ek jana mukta. There will be one person who is completely mukta, liberated. Koti mukta madhye durlabh ek kṛṣṇa-bhakta. Koti mukta madhye, among crores of liberated persons, durlabh. It is very rare to find ek kṛṣṇa-bhakta, just one devotee of Krishna. Koti jnani madhye hoy ek jana mukta. Koti mukta madhye durlabh ek kṛṣṇa-bhakta. So now we come to the verse we're memorizing this week. It's very simple. Kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma ataeva shanta. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakali ashanta. A Kṛṣṇa-bhakta is niṣkāma, is free from all desires for himself. I mean, the devotee of Krishna is full of desires, but only desires for Krishna's service, like we see in Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's kirtans, how many kirtans are just filled with longing, filled with so many desires, but these are not selfish desires, not material desires. They're only desires for wanting Krishna's pleasure. So kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma, because the devotee doesn't have any desires, ataeva shanta. Ataeva, therefore, he is shanta. He is peaceful. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma, ataeva, therefore, is shanta. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma, ataeva shanta. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami, sakali ashanta. But those who are kami, who are desirous of, who are lusting after bhukti, sense gratification, mukti, liberation, and siddhi, mystic powers, sakali, all of them are ashanta. They are unpeaceful, they are restless, they are disturbed. Bhukti, mukti, siddhi, kami, sakali ashanta. Those desirous of bhukti, sense gratification, bhukti kami, those desirous of mukti, mukti kami, and those desiring mystic perfections, siddhi kami, sakali ashanta. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami, sakali ashanta. Alright, so now let's go through and memorize this verse together. The kṛṣṇa-bhakta is niṣkāma, is free from desire, ataev, and therefore is shanta. The kṛṣṇa-bhakta is niṣkāma, and therefore is shanta. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma, ataeva shanta. Let's repeat this 5 times. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma, ataeva shanta. 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 Those kami, those desiring, bhukti, mukti, siddhi, sakali, all of them are ashanta. Bhukti, mukti, siddhi, kami, sakali, all of them are ashanta, are disturbed, restless, not peaceful. Bhukti, mukti, siddhi, kami, sakali ashanta. Now let's say that 5 times. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami, sakali ashanta. 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 Now let's repeat both lines together. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma, ataeva shanta. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami, sakali ashanta. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma, ataeva shanta. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami, sakali ashanta. Alright, so now we'll repeat the verse 10 times and then we'll call it a day. And try to not look at the words when you're reciting this verse. Try to do it from memory. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma, ataeva shanta. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami, sakali ashanta. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma, ataeva shanta. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami, sakali ashanta. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma, ataeva shanta. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami, sakali ashanta. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma, ataeva shanta. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami, sakali ashanta. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma atta eva shanta bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakali ashanta. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma atta eva shanta bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakali ashanta. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma atta eva shanta bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakali ashanta. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma atta eva shanta bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakali ashanta. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma atta eva shanta bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakali ashanta. kṛṣṇa-bhakta niṣkāma atta eva shanta bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakali ashanta. Good job! Today I'm going to work on making another video where I'll go into more details about this verse, and also I'll go over the next verse, muktanam api siddhanam, which you can memorize if you like. It's not required though. Also, I updated vineofdevotion.com. I gave the Zoom links on the main page now, so if you go to the main page, at the very top of the page, you'll see the information for the Zoom links and timings in different countries. And also, I updated the Rupa Shiksha verses page. So I updated the translations, I gave all the videos there, and also you'll be able to find new PDFs that you can print out for your daily verse recitals. Alright, so I'll see you in the next one. Jai Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai.